for a lot of, like, one thing that I appreciate dying.
Yeah. I think she doesn't have anything to do with us. Honestly, nothing else is something I missed. I know. Well, I was thinking that when I had the figure, I was like, I didn't say anything. Yeah. It's a little far earlier. So they moved the shelters down in the area to transport them up. So you want to put it somewhere they should retire. Yeah. 2 weeks. And he's pretty awesome. Yeah. I really want to. But I think. Hopefully. Yeah. Helpful. The dynamics. Yeah. 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 How are you? Oh, okay. Okay, it is 7 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll. Molly? Yes. Lisa? Here. Dan?
Here.
And Shannon? Here. Okay, we have a quorum, we have one vacancy. Aside from that, we're all here. Can we agree to the agenda?
Sure. Could I ask to requests.
Sure.
Could you amend the agenda to include the, I think, November 6th minutes?
Oh, yes.
And then Lincoln emailed me, or Lincoln texted me this afternoon. He wanted to request if he could go on the back end of the agenda.
Okay.
Maybe we could front end the candidates and then Lincoln, give Lincoln time to get out of class and home.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. If the council, or if the commission would consider that.
Okay, so move forward down below 5. Okay, so in theory, we would go to closed session and then open it back up again for Lincoln.
Yeah,
Okay,
that would work.
okay, that's fine with me, but everyone's okay with that.
Okay. I move to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. November minutes.
I move we approve the minutes from November 6, 2023.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. So, report on relevant actions by town council.
3 things to mention. One would be, I think the committee is aware already of the new parks committee. That's the Hyderman help as the town council being involved in. That has been taking place. There's also a safety committee, which is a new committee of the town council that Eileen is in charge of. That's happening. Those 2 things are probably the most significant discussions. We also had a meeting with this organization that I think that'll be chatting with us tonight. And then there's also last town council, we had the unique situation of not having a quorum, so several things weren't advanced. I was one of the absentees being out of town, but that hasn't happened before.
That is.
Yeah, there were multiple people away, which delayed those things. Other than that, it was fairly quiet recently.
Remember there was a zoning matter, that was on the council agenda, and Javier, you were ready to talk about it today?
Yeah, so I included in your agenda the brief that I presented to the town council. So I suggest as I go through it, you can review that brief. Dan's seen it before in the, I believe, last month work session. So in summary, if we go off of the overview, we as zoning administrator had preliminary discussions with a possible applicant for a private club, for a social club. The Riviera Club at 137 East Main Street. The property is zoned commercial within the historic district. On doing research on the property, I found a conflict in our zoning ordinance provisions. For our commercial district, it states that there's a permitted use for clubs, lodges, civic, fraternal, and patriotic in section 1110(1)(b)(5). While at the same time, there's a requirement for a special use permit for clubs, lodges, civic, fraternal, and patriotic in section 1110(2)(I) of our zoning ordinance. Having read both sections, section 0.2 of our zoning ordinance states that whenever there's a conflict between 2 provisions in our zoning ordinance, the most stringent and highest standard as determined by zoning administrator shall prevail. You as commissioners of planning commission, of course, know that an SUP is more stringent than a permitted use in our zoning ordinance. Beyond that, I had conversations with our town attorney. It suggested that I reach out to town council and ask for some clarification. I think this started to step away from an administrative responsibility into a legislative question. And in respect to brevity and a recent possible applicant for a social club. I shared that with town council last work session in November. I was gonna ask them to consider, I guess the facts and then call for a public session, call for a public hearing. Because any zoning amendment, text amendment requires, as you guys know, a public hearing prior to any decision being made. What I can suggest to you is that I printed out, this zoning brief that contains a little bit of more of that information. Beyond that, at the same time, I found a zoning conflict in regards to section 11 in regards to fire and rescue stations. So in summary, this kind of brings up something we have discussed during comprehensive plan. You always need a zoning rewrite after completing your zoning. Or after a zoning rewrite after completing your comprehensive plan. Obviously, from the way I'm interpreting this got copied over, and as you guys know, our zoning is old Albemarle zoning. So I can't really see the intent, if anybody asks. It's what we asked during the last town council session. This is original code from '96. It's been amended here and there, what, 2-3 times since then. But this kind of points towards some of the good work we could do after completing that work with Lincoln and Planning Commission, kind of clearing this up. But in the meantime, I wanted to share this with you because Chair Lisa shared interest in hearing a little bit about what town council discussed. So I'll put up, I'll ask town council to discuss it again in December and proceed forward if they so do desire.
Javier, just one other thing to add, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's fair to say there was pretty, I think, unanimous support for the club. There was a bit of debate which way to go, and I think Mr. Boland is advocating against the special use permit. Is that correct? That is correct, yes.
I think he would put it up as this is a decision town council needs to make. I think we've shared that there's 2 different options you could do. You could strike through language in the section that is special use, or strike through language in the permitted uses. I would say council seems supportive of it. But again, it's a legislative question more than an administrative question, so. We asked.
No, it's not that I was asking you, I was asking more kind of what I think he was, I think I would call, and again, I could definitely tell, but I think his thought was. If you don't have to go restricted with special use, why would you do that? I think it was more to not do that. We can obviously double check.
I have it on video.
So, and we're gonna open up the floor in just a moment. I'm actually really excited to see so many people here today. We don't usually get guests, so that was awesome. Thank you. Just a few. Wouldn't this ordinarily go through planning commission to make recommendations on the zoning ordinance? How did it skip over and go to town council?
It didn't, the group came to visit us on their own.
And brought this discrepancy to our attention?
I think it's probably fair.
Yeah, so as zoning administrator, my determination is you would have to go with special use permit, just reading how our zoning ordinance is right now. But the applicant has expressed interest in trying in it being permitted use. So I thought in respect to the applicant, I brought it up to town council. Since essentially I have to read as your zoning administrator, your zoning law. And interpret it with what's written down there. But town council has an ability to do a zoning text amendment. Often we come up to you guys for an advisory role. But I wish to respect everyone's time also on the zoning ordinance. On this conflict in our zoning ordinance.
Without having it at my fingertips right now, so it's the same section, 11.10 point. So that part of the section is correct. What would the difference be between 1 and 2? Are there any big differences between them? I wish I had it. I'm sure somebody in the audience does. You guys are awesome.
So the first section I mentioned is your permitted uses. So 11.10 is permitted use.
And then the next one is special use.
Yeah, and then 11.10.2 is special use.
Okay, all right.
So
Yeah,
could,
that's a total conflict.
right, so what is the procedure here? You're saying town council needs to make a decision on this, or could we just vote to amend? The ordinance.
You cannot vote to do a zoning text amendment. You can give recommendations as an advisory board. But I brought it up to town council because they have the authority to amend the zoning text.
And also the prior use of that space was civic, a lodge. Yeah, so I mean.
But
it wouldn't-
it's permitted use ended in our, again, in our zoning. So they can essentially get grandfathered into that. Our zoning. The use of that property previously as a social club extended past the deadline for continuing to use that prior use.
Okay,
Review that with the attorney also.
So that particular clause of the zoning has an expiration date when the use ends.
Yeah.
Okay.
so just for clarification, we usually make the recommendation and then send it to town council. And then they have a special, do they have to have the special, a
Any
hearing?
zoning text amendment has to have a public hearing.
Okay, so can we make the recommendation tonight and then move it along?
Absolutely, you can make a recommendation if you wish to,
Okay,
but town council has an ability at any moment to. Call a public hearing on a zoning text amendment that they're interested in, and then move forward on that. Again, you guys are an advisory board, so essentially. What they request from you is recommendations,
mhm.
but the final vote is town council.
It seems a tad redundant. Is this
Yeah.
something that you feel strongly about, like, that we would have a voice in this?
No, I'm just, usually. We do make the zoning text amendment recommendation, then it goes to town council, so I just don't know why. Like, why wouldn't we just do that and get the ball rolling?
Okay,
I don't know.
all right,
Yeah, we got it.
I'm awake.
Okay, well, might as well jump in. Matters from the public. Is anyone here to speak? If you could, please state your name and whereabouts you live. Okay, that's for the record, is part of the requirements.
Absolutely, no problem. My name is Nancy Schlichting. I live in Buckingham County. I'm here representing the Riviera Club. We have this process has been a little convoluted. It's kind of gone back and forth. There wasn't a forum at the last town council meeting, so things got a little bit stymied, but I do think we're on the right path. And I think that the suggestion that this body make a recommendation that the town council can consider, amend, modify, vote upon, but it will at least get the ball rolling, I think, going forward. And I believe that Mr. Frisco is exactly right, that the consensus so far has been in the discussion, it appears to be in favor of going with the part of the ordinance that actually is by right. So just to recap it a little bit, because it's a little legally tricky. There's two ordinances. It has clubs, and this particular organization would follow the vote. One's in by right, one's in special use permit. There's the conflict. Javier's challenge has been that there's an additional provision in the ordinance which says that if there's a conflict, you're supposed to take a more strict and stringent view. That hasn't occurred until Javier's come on board, and so he has found this contradiction in the statute. And then he's also found it for the fire rescue, which is actually a big thing too. They picked up on that. So in any event, so what we would like is for this process to move forward as quickly as possible. We do think it's appropriate for the portion for the ordinance to be amended to allow this type of organization and the organizations like it to proceed under a by right, because it is consistent with what this town has been advocating for, and even under the language of the preamble of the statute, which talks about this district where they're located is to providing places to conduct commerce and business, as well as to provide places of employment, strengthen the local economic base, And then to allow activities involving retail, wholesale services. And again, to allow them in appropriate locations, and as Ms. Strassman pointed out, if this location was, perhaps, I'm sorry, it might have been someone else pointed out, this location was used for exactly or very similar to this type of purpose. Our organization is very civic minded. They actually organized that the car show that was occurred this weekend. They put their own money into it for food and promotion, and they made it happen. Those things are all positive for the town of Scottsville. Strasburg knows, like, I'm a big Scottsville fan. I help with the soccer organization here, and anything that brings people and you know to this area is great for Scottsville and great for the purposes that are stated. So we do have a mission statement, because there were some questions at one point by some of the town council members about what this club does, and I'd be happy to provide that. It may not be appropriate, but if you'd like to have.
I was wondering that, I would love to see that,
Okay,
sure.
great.
And we'll go ahead and add that to the record.
Hey, can you want to help me with the location?
It's one more thing store on next to the.
You can't.
So I'll go ahead and read this into the record. The mission is a local nonprofit uniting like-minded people socially and celebrating life together. Promotes the welfare and enhances the happiness of its members and community. Cultivates good fellowship amongst its members and community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so, just in summary, I think they've got a proper path to give the town council the support of this, this group, to move this forward. It would be appropriate for you to make a recommendation regarding how the ordinance should be amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm kind of curious, can I ask a question? Sure. Okay. So you reserve the right to deny membership to anyone of questionable moral character. Who makes that determination?
So like, my name's Jessica Lillen, I live in Scottsville, I'm the treasurer and administrator of the Riviera Club. The way this works is the same way other fraternal organizations like the Moose Lodge and VFW and so forth. We have an application process that will be in place when they submit that. The intention is to look at the Virginia State Police website, make sure somebody is not an offender. And then the board, there are 7 members on the board for voting for application, but it is the same way as another private social club that is regulated, that has a national organization. We're just local people in Scottsville who are following a very similar business model to other social clubs.
Okay, and uniting like-minded people, is that, I mean, do you all have a purpose or something identifiable in that way?
No, I speak for it. May I speak for it?
Sure. Go ahead.
We're Christians,
Well,
bylaws, we're Christian organizations.
so we have bylaws as other things, but it's local people who want to see Scottsville thrive. We also want to fill a need that will be available when other businesses are closed. We want to see our community thrive. We are, again, civic-minded individuals. We have not even been allowed to conduct commerce, even though we're registered with the SCC. And we have, in less than 3 weeks, put together the car show. We've made our space available for display and everything else. We have showed our intention is to make this town better, to make the quality of life and what we do, just having a safe place for people to meet and get together and exist. Just like a Moose Lodge, there's not the discrimination or anything like that. We just want to make sure that people that we have, that we adhere to the federal and state regulations that exist for us as a private social club, making sure that we can still meet the 501(c)(7) regulations to stay as a private social club. And in doing that, we do have to have a voting process, we have to have an application process. And not necessarily discriminating against each other, but we do have, against anyone, but we do have to have a process in admitting people into a private social club.
Has this come up in the past? Any other conflicts here that, I mean, what about the Masonic Lodge? Do we know how they got?
Somebody's lodge probably got grandfathered in if your zoning code started in 96.
Yeah.
And then you vacate your use after, I can't remember what the period is. But I researched into that too, to see if the use could continue over. The same way, Lumpkins about a year and a half ago we discussed. I think it came up to planning commission. So it really is a zoning, from what I can tell reading it, but I can't tell much about it. It seems like something that got copied over in developing that. And it kind of stretches the point of, I'd like to do a zoning rewrite after our comp plan, so we're in a much more comfortable place.
Well, that's on our list.
Yes, and it's on my list.
It's been on our list.
Beyond that, it's really just a zoning question for us. Town council has considered it. And does see it as a positive inclusion. It's very unfortunate our zoning text, 20-year-old alcohol text.
Can I ask, just kind of not related to this, but that building, are the apartments still being renovated that we had approved?
Last I heard, they are
Okay.
renovating it.
Okay,
I used to reach out to them.
Curious. okay. All right, and then the social club is in the
First floor.
downstairs first floor, okay.
I don't have social club. It keeps jumping out at me that it would be like a bar or something like that, but it is strictly like a moose lodge kind of thing.
Yeah,
Say something?
to answer your question, and then I'll think on the floor, to answer your question, we will be applying for our ABC license, but because we've had 2 months of being told that it was being consulted and so forth, and we've kind of gotten to this part a little haphazardly. We've decided we weren't going to invest in the ABC license until we were able to get town council and the commission to say that we can open our doors for commerce. But it is very much the business model, our vision statement. I'm a member of the Women Marine Association, the VFW, and the Moose Lodge. Everything that we have in our idea, our lineup, our business model, and moving forward is very similar to those clubs. But instead of being nationally backed, we are a group of 25 local people who said, let's do this and provide something to the people in the community.
Your name, please, and whereabouts you live?
I'm John, I live in Scottsville. I bartended at tavern here, most of you should. Well, a lot of people know. This is a good group of people trying to do a good thing. I volunteered at VFW back in Detroit, that's where I come from. They're just trying to raise money, do something good for the community. That just benefits everybody. That's all I'm gonna say. This is not a bad thing. I've been around, I've been in DC, I've been in New York, I've been in Detroit, I've been everywhere. What they're trying to do here is a good thing. That's all I'm gonna say.
You all have written rules and regulations and things of that nature as far as, I mean, are you creating some sort of?
So we have, again, because we are a nonprofit with the SEC, we had to submit bylaws and some other documentation since we were doing the private club 501(c)(7) route, stock corporation, and so we do have that. Potentially some of the things are subject to change and be amended, but that would also require us to go to our board and present so that things could be changed.
Can I say?
Sure, go ahead.
This is the public opportunity, so anyone who wants to speak is allowed
And
to.
I just, one of the things that kind of keeps it, we do good for the community. as a 501c7, we never, you don't make money, okay, it's, everything gets turned back into the community. Who our benefactor is the Scottsville Police, I mean, that's, so any money that ever gets made, it's theirs. So it's not a matter of, are we, I don't know, doing like nefarious things, or is it a social club that's gonna sneak around and do?
It's not a bar, it's not.
Yeah, it's, basically, it's a benefactor of everybody,
Sure.
just getting together,
And
and like I said, the police are the ones that benefit.
Yeah. I just, when you look at an organization that, isn't supported nationally, you just wanna know that things are,
Yeah, but I mean, all
Well,
organizations started out locally before they became that.
yeah, that would be interesting too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. My turn. My name is Kevin Morrow. I'm a patron and citizen of this community. But I can tell you right now, everything we're trying to do is provide someone a safe atmosphere to be able to enjoy themselves and not have to worry about the riffraff. And what we try to bleed and feed out is some of the people in the community that come in that don't really have the right to be in society. And that's the whole reason that we're actually a little strict on the type of people who are allowed to be members. And basically, when she said that she's gonna run through the SEC and through the Virginia database and everything, we want to make sure that the good people in this community get to live here and give back to this community. And everything we want to do here is not for profit or gain, it's to give an organization for good people in this community to live here and thrive here, to give something back to the economy of Scottsville. So that's why we support the police, the Boys and Girls Club, things that we do with nothing but charity. We don't want profit. We just want an organization where good people can enjoy themselves in a safe environment and give back to the community. This is not a game.
I will say, I commend that completely. I just have a hard time with some of the language, the like-minded and. Being able to exclude people. That doesn't sound very inclusive.
Organizations have to be, it's part of the bylaws of all social organizations that they have to be able to exclude.
ABC and the IRS regulate that we have to be, in order to be considered a private social club, that we have to have that. So that's from the Commonwealth and from the federal government that says that we have to have that.
Okay.
But it's also keeping like-minded people with like-minded people. And when I say like-minded people, it's people that are just trying to contribute to the community. It's not trying to, it's people that are trying to take away.
I think what they're trying to say is the like-minded part of it just means that they have common interests, goals, and they're striving for them together. And so it's not that they're attempting to exclude or discriminate against people, but they, it's not everyone's going to fit this category of what they're trying to accomplish. So, but I think that the mission statement clearly states that their goals are honorable, they are civic minded, and so far their actions have done that even before they've even gotten off the ground. They are going to be regulated by the ABC, the SEC. They have to have stated goals and standards. And so they do have standards for their membership, and there's nothing illegal about that, and there's nothing nefarious about it. It's just that that's what this organization is going to do, and they're going to. And interestingly, I appreciate the concern that I'm a lawyer. I keep saying like mine. What does that mean? I get that, and I can say the rest of the mission statement I think takes care of that. And I've been through now maybe Javier's to see me 3 or 4 meetings. I haven't heard one person stand up and be in opposition to this particular club. And so I'm getting that, everybody wants to proceed carefully, but there's been a lot of roadblocks put up with this group. And so that's one of the reasons that there are so many people here trying to state what it is and to confirm that what they're trying to do is something that would be good for Scottsville. And I'll be going to their door and asking them for a soccer scholarship, going donation here.
Ma'am, I'll be here to answer your question. My name's Colin Gray, my phone board is Scottsville. Been for 28 years. Anyway,
essentially, if somebody comes in and expect me as a man, and I can expect him as a man, he's gonna be okay with that, I mean, that's basically all of it. And it's a man on man type of deal, but if we're gonna get an attitude or against people, then we'll probably let you in. But you would do that with your own home.
Okay, yeah.
This is to build up, not to tear down.
Well, but I would
And
just,
I'm really not trying to question any of that, I think that's fantastic, I just wanna make sure. I'm glad I could ask it, I'm glad you guys could talk. to me.
There is no prejudice whatsoever, I
Well,
promise.
And again, just to throw in the SCC, the ABC, but IRS also has regulations for private social clubs. And we have submitted our application for the 501(c)(7). And there is a 7-page booklet that ABC produces specifically for private social clubs. And one of the stipulations is that we have to restrict our membership. That doesn't mean that we can discriminate against people. It does, however, mean that we have to be aware of who's coming in. So our members and their guests can come in, and we have ensured the safety of the people who are in the building. That who is coming through as somebody who's approved, who's agreed to be held accountable if there's destruction of property or improper behavior. We don't want anyone reflecting poorly on us, the business, or the town. And so everyone who's a member has already agreed to that the same way as any other private social club. And any of the restrictions we have or any language that seems restricted or I guess in a general statement, those are things that are required or things that are coming straight from the government organizations that regulate us.
Gotcha.
Jessica, and I'm David Way, I've helped fill out the application with the IRS. It goes further than what she just said. 501(c)(3) cannot display.
Right. Well, I appreciate you guys talking to me about it and explaining it.
and also, we're, as a body, we make recommendations to town council, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Typically, if there's a complicated issue, town council will say, hey, planning commission, we need your help on this, delve into this, learn about this a little bit more. Think about it, talk it through, make a recommendation, and then we'll consider it also. So when I'm sitting here listening, I'm not just listening for what you guys are gonna tell me, I'm thinking of the next group that comes before us, and the next group, and the next group, and I'm thinking, what kind of good policy should we have in this town? So that, yeah, I'm sure you're a wonderful group of people, and I recognize some faces, and I don't know anyone to be a troublemaker. But we need to think about what's a good policy for our town, because there's a conflict right now in our rules. So we should be thinking, you know, is it a good idea to have a special use permit? Or this sort of organization, clubs, lodges, civic, fraternal, patriotic, is that something that should be by right? So that's kind of what we're thinking about. It's not just about you, it's about what's the right thing to do for our town.
Man, before you guys adopted these laws, you had nothing set in stone. And our town lawyer, as you stated, you adopted our county's rules and regulations, right?
No, their town attorney said that.
Their town attorney.
Yeah.
But if there was an opportunity for you to have provisions to allow us to operate as a special club from a previous Mason building that was a club, then you should be able to eliminate some of the provisions that would go on to the next person or the next club or whatever it is. Again, we don't want you to pull us up down the street, right? But at some point, you guys are going to rewrite your laws or adopt this with provisions and then move forward on how you proceed with anyone else after this. That was also our turn.
And I understand your comments about, you know, you're thinking about precedent, you know, what kind of, you know, what are we doing if we adopt a policy that says clubs and fraternities should be allowed by right to operate? Well, think about the impact we might have on clubs and organizations that are legitimate, law-abiding, economic building types of clubs. If you're telling them you have to go through this process, you have to pay $1,500 in order to even get to be considered for a special use permit. That's kind of a chilling effect, frankly, on civic organizations that frankly this town needs. And so if you think about what it is that you might be doing by making a recommendation to town council, and certainly they can ignore you too, unfortunately, but you know, you can make a recommendation. But I think that it would be saying that you are supporting the goals of Scottsville to increase the commerce, to invite clubs to be here. And remember, if they do anything illegal, you can shut them down. I mean, they'll be shut down regardless. So it's nothing, or if there's anything that's a problem, you can also address that too. So this is just really a zoning question of whether or not it's appropriate for a private club to operate in a building that frankly had a private club in it for years and years and years. And so the other issues that you're thinking about in the background are really peripheral and can be dealt with if something ever happened or there was a problem. But to require social clubs, private clubs, lodges, these other fraternal type of organizations to go through the special use permit process with that expense and the time it takes, I think it would have a chilling effect on other organizations that should be allowed to operate here by right. So that's just the flip side of that.
How is it that the special use permit fee is $1,500?
We approved SUP fees, what, this July? So our schedule
Council.
increased, yeah.
1,500
Uh,
or
Or a nonprofit.
For all SUPs, so any applicant for an SUP is 1,500. Our fees for advertising, because for a special use permit, you have to do a public advertising are high. So it's covering that and staff time.
I don't get any.
Bring that to council.
That was in all those budget talks.
May I add something?
Sure.
So when we first were here in November, somebody threw out KKK, that went in the file that they were worried about the KKK coming in. And it is true that the KKK did start in the early 1800s as a private social group as well. It has been reformed 3 different times and it is identified by the United States government to be a subversive group. And so anyone who does not meet the private club standards, they're referred to as a group, regardless if they want to tell you they're a private club. So everybody's worried about providing this safety net of trying to catch everything. Well, that's impossible. We know it's impossible to think of every single scenario, but as far as it applies to us, it was also brought up at the meeting. Well, why don't we grandfather them in the same way that the Masons have been grandfathered in, and then we will address the contradiction in the ordinance after we grandfather them in. There are multiple solutions that were presented the very first time that we were here. As it is, we've already been waiting over 4 months just to get here. So it's just not, it's not been conducive for us, and we haven't really had the due process that would typically have happened, but we're here now, and that's just kind of, I don't know, I just want to say that, like you can't catch everything. I know we want to protect this town, we all do, you can't catch everything. But if we were some kind of subversive hate group, or there's gonna come a hate group behind us, there are federal regulations that say that that's a hate group, that's a terrorist group, and that therefore the town ordinances wouldn't apply. They wouldn't be able to have a business here. They wouldn't be able to do those types of things. They would do it on their private property the same way that they continue to do that stuff.
Just almost reiterate the fact that in the last meeting, they did determine that they were going to grandfather this particular situation until they could work out the details on what are the modifications they can do to get the legislation. I was there for that.
I'll say one other thing, and it would just be one possible solution. Not. But one possible solution might be, that you could consider, is to change the language. Where it says, club, lodge, social club, and so forth. And to say, just to simply add something that says that as defined by IRS code 501c7. To me, that would prevent organizations that did not comply with those federal regulations. And I'm not sure that the language currently would do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but anyway, that would just be one potential solution.
Like as a requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
because
just simply,
In the
just simply say, when you simply say club, lodge, social club. That's what I think some of that language makes us all a little bit concerned about what those things entail.
Yeah,
But if we reference a federal regulation that limits what those can be. The non-discriminatory organizations, perhaps that might be one way of using it and putting it in the code so that. Not anything that might be defined generally as a social club.
yeah.
Because keep in mind,
That's
it's
very
very public formed and they are for profit, so you would have to consider that if they're gonna try to. You have to change the language so that if there is a organized profit or whatever, that
Yeah.
they don't end up here doing the same.
I was just gonna say thank you, everybody, for sharing your thoughts, same thing with the town council meeting, and it seems as we talked, that as was noted there, I don't think anybody is opposed the organization. I think what we found from the town council meeting and this meeting is trying to figure out easiest way to do it, and so would you want to propose one? Would you want to, how would you chair like us to move forward?
Well, I mean, doesn't sound like town council really needs to hear from us, but it would be nice to, but I also don't know that we. Given it enough research to be able to make a recommendation, because I agree with what Mr. Way said, that there should be something in here that's more. If it was gonna rise to the level of special use permit, that would be something that's more, undefined. Which I kind of think clubs is a word that's undefined, and I don't even know what lodges means necessarily. But I agree that we should not be making unnecessary burdens and obstacles on law-abiding, civic-minded groups, and maybe that language needs to be fleshed out a little bit. What would be acceptable versus for by right versus what might rise to the level of special use. Yeah. So I mean, I think town council should spend more time evaluating what the difference there is. And if they want our opinion, then I'm happy to delve into it more, but I don't know if I can really flesh that out right now.
I will say after these meetings, I think the town council would appreciate any guidance or ideas that you might come up with. Because it's been a discussion, and frankly, that idea was a really good one, and that's the first time I've heard it.
Yeah,
And I think that even if you were to differentiate, maybe even not for profit, as opposed to actually applying or obtaining the 501c7 designation or whatever, even if you define it as not-for-profit, at least you could get the groups that didn't really have the money for a special use permit or whatever. So I think that, whatever you might come up with might be helpful to them. And of course, I do think they were struggling a little bit. Everybody's struggling a little bit with it. So your collective thoughts on this discussion, I think, has been productive.
Yeah, I think that we should amend the first part of the statement and strike the special use permit for clubs and lodges and add the language.
Would you be willing to word that as a motion?
Yes,
And is it appropriate to take a motion on something that has arisen from matters from the public, or should it become an agenda item so that we could? I mean, we already have staff research, but I don't even know if that's appropriate.
Robert's rules, you can make a motion to provide town council with a recommendation.
Despite it not being on the agenda.
right, I mean, we'd still have to recommend it to them and they'd have to call a special use.
How would that
or-
information be conveyed to them?
I report out to town council. What planning commission has recommended. And it's on the public record right now. Yes. It's part of my.
So yeah, I think the 11.10.1 B5 of the zoning ordinance should be amended to include the 501c requirement. And then we could strike the redundant or the conflicting 11-10-2 of the zoning ordinance.
Repeat that one more time for our clerk.
Yeah, so I think that we should amend 11-10-1 B5 of the zoning ordinance. Wait, which one requires?
That first one is your
Okay,
permitted uses.
yes, I think we should amend the permitted uses to include the 501c language. And we should strike the conflicting ordinance that requires a special use permit for clubs and lodges. Is what I suggest, but we haven't closed the public hearing and I haven't made a motion yet. But that was the motion I would make.
I would recommend 501. But this is tedious, 501c3 is nonprofit, lodges are like 501c5, I think.
Well,
That's the
and
most-
I think that's the part that I would amend, that I think we need more research on what. The governance is like 501c3 and 501.
But
If you
could
just put
we-
501, it covers, if you just put
So-
501, that just covers all the entities, and then whatever
Right.
category they fall in.
That's somebody working
There's
on.
foundations, there's all different kinds of categories, but
Okay,
they're all not for
so-
profit.
Commissioner Strassner, I second your emotion.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second, now we have
No,
discussion.
that was, I said emotion, I didn't say, you didn't make a full motion.
We have to close, I think we have to close the public hearing first.
Well, we didn't have a public hearing.
Or not the public hearing, the matters.
But is there
the
anyone else from
public.
the public who has something that they want to add to this, who hasn't already spoken?
I think you guys have to remember that Scottsville is supposed to be business friendly and that we should support things and give that message that we are continuing to be business friendly. Because, you know, when we put people through this process, it comes across as not friendly.
Well,
Yes.
that's a conversation that we have a lot.
Right,
And so,
and you
I
know,
think that-
we didn't even know this conversation was happening until tonight, so sorry,
So, there you
everybody,
go.
for the pain.
Albemarle County is 139 years old in Scottsville. The establishment of them two have been separated by almost over a century and a half. Right? So we adapted some bylaws from the 90s from Albemarle County because we didn't establish the ones that we need here. So revision and review of what's considered a social private club or a social permit or a free right, those things need to be established. Like, we have to have some type of revision. We also gotta keep in constant of the fact that grandfather clauses that allow us to be able to be a nonprofit organization and a charitable part of the community and bring back economies and revenue to this community.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet, who'd like to speak?
Yes, my name is Joe Souza. I live in town here, lived here for 40 years. I love this place. And I love what they represent and the people around them, what they represent. I built for the government, the Navy, the Army. I understand development and I see what's going on here in the last 4 years, just trying to pull out of my driveway across from the elementary school on the Randolph farm. People want to come around, they want to be here, but there's plenty of times that they come here and there just are no services. They're closed. That hurts the gas station. That hurts everyone locally. And there are a lot of wonderful people here that love to put together events, help the community, Christmas time. My children love it. They walk down the streets and like, yeah, these are just like the towns we grew up in Maine, in New Hampshire. They're small, they're friendly, and there are locals, you know, don't want outside. But this is a local place that's being put together. I think they're wonderful people. I knew that within minutes of meeting them. And like-minded is people who have other people's welfare and, you know, at the foremost of every thought that they do. I contribute a lot, I volunteer a lot. I do that and I hang out with people that do the same thing. It doesn't mean people are sitting in there drinking, there's people that don't. You know, there's people, it's conversation, it's a social event, and you may not want to be around that other person that's at another establishment that has their own problems. So those are the things that we all learn from, and that's why, you know, everyone here wants to build that platform up to a pillar of the community, not to cause burdens on police or fire. I don't see how that's a possibility.
But future expansion, your tourist time over here on the river alone. I've talked with all these people, I've been doing this all my life. The amount of money that is lost, that this community really needs to recoup from everything everyone's gone over the last 3-4 years. It's been devastating. So these people are doing more than reaching into their own pockets and their own savings to put something forward. It's very admirable. So I like that. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you,
I hope we make good progress,
thank you.
because there will be many. There'll be a few more around here that will be trying to get permits and things like that that I know of, so. Streamlining it, as you suggested, this was an excellent idea. And that enlightened all of us to something that most of us did not know that that existed. Sometimes the language can simplify everything. So I hope that this has a positive outcome, and the future businesses will probably appreciate it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we will need to close the public comments soon. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything else who hasn't spoken preferably, because we?
I
Given-
only need like 10 seconds. For the 11.10.2, where it's perceived contradiction, I just want to point out, because it's not been said here or on the record, that it says in pursuant with section 20.3.4 regarding special use permits, and then when you get to that section, it refers you to section 5 ordinance that tells you how the special use permit is supposed to be applied to nonprofit organizations such as ourselves. And in the language of section 5, it says per event, so it doesn't say opening a business, it says per event, so it's indicating for a nonprofit such as ourselves that it would be if we were having something. Like a concert or something that would put that added load, and so when you guys consider that, I would just ask that you read all of the language, those particular sections, and see if that helps you suss out how that would apply in this particular situation.
Okay, that's helpful to hear. So we don't have the opportunity to suss that out right now.
Right.
So we could either take the time to do that,
Yeah.
or we could recommend that council and their attorney, our attorney, review that more carefully. I don't know if that was considered.
I've spoken with her about it. As your zoning administrator with your attorney and in consultation with Nancy, their attorney, I've also. Well, I've discussed it with you, but our attorney and that zoning text is not applicable. I think we wanna stay on point. What I have in the brief is what is applicable to the social club, so.
That might explain why there's a conflict. I mean, it could be that the special use permit is needed for an event, and that's why 2.2I comes into play now.
No,
We don't-
it's literally, we have our section 11, which is commercial use, permitted uses, it says social club, et cetera, et cetera. And then you flip a page, you go to special uses, and it has the same language as special use. So literally, what I think is got copied over.
Okay. Okay, all right, any other comments? Okay, anyone online?
Lincoln and the James Exchange.
Okay, any comments there?
Neither.
Okay. All right, so, matters from the public, that is now closed. We do have a motion on the table, we have do we have a second?
No, go back. Is that a motion?
Yes, I mean, if I make the motion, can you guys add the language or,
Yeah.
It's gonna need research 501.
right,
See,
just 501?
I mean, but I don't know, are
think
there
that-
any other regulations that might apply, maybe not nonprofits, maybe there's.
I think the main, I'm sorry. The main thing I was gonna say, Chair, I think that. The main differentiator the town council would be helpful to know is special use or not, and I think we're saying not. I think the other technical part, we as the town council.
Well, I mean, are we saying not special use permit because they have the 501c7, or are we saying not special use permit because any social club should be allowed?
I'm saying because they have the 501.
And that's compelling for me also.
So that's why I liked the recommendation to amend that language and strike the conflicting special use permit required language.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that. I don't know, I mean, Charlottesville has social clubs, but do you wanna be Charlottesville? But I like, and that comment comes up all the time, does it not?
I'm happy to, I will second what you suggested.
Okay. Okay, discussion, so. I mean, I'm in agreement as well, I think, but I think it needs to be regulated, I don't think it should just be any social club, I think it should be. Something that has some accountability somewhere.
I think the town council has already started talking about this and has been considering it. I think that the ordinance needs to be adjusted. And we plan to do that after the comp plan is in place. Is that correct?
We have.
I brought this up because I'd rather do it before, so
Right.
you have something perfect to it. I just wanna bring it up in a holistic way, this is why you wanna do a zoning
Right.
ordinance rewrite next year after we wrap up our plan. Our comp plan.
Okay, so you would rather, you want this motion to go through so we can fix it and then move forward.
That's why I brought it up.
And just to say this too, the comprehensive plan. Every once in a while, I'd like to quote former Mayor Grove, and it's just writing on a piece of paper, it's great, but there are real issue, an issue comes up as a need. And this, you would say the need of what we're trying to address supersedes trying to wait for some document in the future, so just to agree with what you're saying. Let's address their concern, it's legitimate, and to do so. We're simply recommending the town council, and as was said by Councilor think that. Basically, the council could use some clarity from the planning commission. Would be helpful to move it forward.
Okay, ready to take a vote? Or do we see a need for further amendments to that motion?
I'm interested in knowing thoughts you have, what do you play, so.
No, I think the ordinance is conflicting, so it needs to be addressed. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with the social club. I just had questions.
I appreciated your question. Because this was the first time I've heard like rumors about the social club, but I didn't know anything about it, so. I appreciated the questions and the clarification from all of you who attended, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
I would say though, in the future, if this motion were to pass, I think that. The organization that's looking to get the buy right needs to present proof of their nonprofit status and their, charter or whatever they needed to qualify for that. So,
So to just put some clarity to that
Yeah.
section.
yeah,
I think that's a really great idea.
It's a little bit like I guess I would say the chicken and the egg, because that also puts them in a difficult spot of having to. Do a lot of things that are difficult before they know that there's tentative acceptance of them doing that.
that's true.
But if it's by right,
Well, yeah, it would be,
Then it would be-
clear
yeah.
that what the by right would be.
Yeah, and if we don't have the special use permit. Then conflict,
Right.
then it
it would
won't
just be
come.
by right.
Wouldn't be as difficult.
Yeah, it would be like a business moving in, at some
Yeah.
point, they would have to come to the town, I'm sure, and say, here's my business license, here's, all of my.
It just
To
wouldn't come.
prove that, I'm a legally operating business, I would assume that any club. Coming forward in the future would have to present, here's our 501c, here's our charter, here's all of the stuff that we presented to. The IRS and the federal government to get this.
Yeah,
Status.
One other thing I might say to the club would be. And I hope I say this nicely. Much of what we do in town government usually is pretty boring. And it takes a while, and it's frustrating when you're sitting out there. It's just the way it is. I'm sure Javier would say the same thing, things that seem to take. a week, saying it could take about 3 months, and things that seem to take like 2 months seem to take about a year. That's just the way it is now. That's when it's moving fast. So I do apologize for the frustration of that, and at the same time, there has been a little confusion in a few other aspects of this, but even at our best. We're not the most and that's not just us, local government tends to be that way. And so I think you all are hearing again, I don't think there's been anybody in either body that's had any objection to y'all. It's more a matter of us figuring out how to do what's best, and I think what Councilor Strassner has suggested is a good way to help move it forward.
All right, let's do this.
You have a motion on the floor, seconded, so.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
This is a voice vote or is it?
It's a recommendation, it's fine. Okay, motion passes. So that motion is us saying to town council, hey, we think it's a good idea to make this by right as long as we really fine tune what type of organization it is.
Hoorah.
So
Right.
and as you very accurately pointed out, our opinion doesn't always get counted, so. Take that thing for what it's worth. Thank you for being here. You're welcome to stay if you want to. We don't really talk about a whole lot of exciting things often. This is probably the highlight of the rest of the year. Old business is being moved down, new business. So are we doing?
My name's Kevin Marley.
Are we going into closed session right now? We need to, hey there. Do you wanna?
Let me. Let's just add that.
This is for the girls.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, the language.
Yeah.
Thank you for making this out, because none of us had it memorized yet.
No.
Although.
So I drafted that to make it.
It's like.
But maybe you want to ask when they do the next meeting to go. You're in closed session, or we want to switch it around. He's on Zoom right now. Lincoln, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Javier.
We have an applicant here, maybe would you be willing to wait a little bit?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I suggest you guys, if you want to go into closed session, I provide language.
I move that the planning commission enter a closed meeting as authorized in subsection A of Virginia Code section 2.2-3711. Specifically subsection 1 for the planning discussion, consideration or interviews of prospective candidates for planning commission vacancy. Who seconds?
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And then give me a moment, because that's it.
Did you print my application?
Yeah, yes.